Meeting to order. And we've already had a prayer that was offered by Leah Vanoy, and I want to thank Leah for doing that for us, and also for her and Sam for cooking our meal this evening. It was just a very wonderful meal, and thank you so much for doing that for us and opening our a meeting with going to the Creator. So with that, let's just move on down the agenda, and the first item is the roll call. Mr. Secretary, would you be able to call the roll, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Walter Eckhart.
Titaku.
Jordan Canuho.
Here.
George Gardapi here. Cal Chapman.
Here.
Cynthia Butler.
Here.
Donna Hare.
Titaku.
Gene Evans.
Here.
Sammy Kimball.
Here.
Thank you, Council. We do have a quorum, and we have our agenda. Do we have any alterations, sir, to the agenda, Mr. Gardapi?
Yes, sir. I do have a couple of changes to make. Under approval of minutes, number 2, instead of December 16th, it needs to state December 19th. And then following on number 3 and 4, under approval of minutes, special needs to be taken out, and it needs to be regular meeting minutes on both of those. So it's on.
So it looks like Geneva is working on your sound, sir.
December 19th instead of 16th. December 19th instead of the 16th. Oh, back.
Okay, so that's it, sir. Okay. With that, unless anyone else has anything to add, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for that, Donna. And we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote if you would, please, sir.
Jordan Canuho.
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Cal Chapman. Cynthia Butler.
Yes.
Donna Hare.
Aho.
Gene Evans.
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Motion carries. So the next item then is to go to approval of the minutes, and we have 4 minutes to approve tonight. I see we're getting closer to our updated here.
Hopefully by the time your last council meeting, President.
Can't hear you.
Let's shoot for that. Okay. The first item then is approval of PBC special meeting minutes, December 6, 2022.
President Hawk, I have a correction. That would be line item number 115. Rather than Carol, it should say Carol with an L. Line 115.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
for that. Are there any other comments, folks? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you for that, Secretary Gardapi. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for that, Dr. Evans. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments on the motion? Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canuho.
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman. Cynthia Butler.
Yes.
Donna Hare.
Aho.
Gene Evans.
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Thanks, council. Motion carries. Next up is approval of PBC special meeting minutes for December 19, 2023. And are there any comments on those minutes, folks? Hearing none, call for the vote. I'm looking for a motion to approve, please.
I'll make a motion, President.
Thanks, Secretary Gardapi. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for that. We have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Tammy Kimball.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. This brings us to the third item, which is approval of PBC regular meeting minutes of March 21, 2023. And are there any comments on those minutes, please? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you for that, Secretary Gardapi. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you for the second, Donna. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Tammy Kimball.
I'm sorry, what's the date of this?
The 21st.
Okay, yes. I do have, I'm sorry, but on December 19th, I'm just scrolling through here, and I hope that we do a spell check, but on line item 270 of December 19th, the city name is Merrimack, M-A-R-E, Merrimack, M-A-R-A-M-E-C. It says Marmac. Just that fix, thank you.
Thank you for that, Sammy. You got that,
We got
Jamie? Thank you. Okay, so where were we? We have a motion and a second on the March 21 minutes.
Oh, it was just Tammy's vote.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm already getting confused, and the sun's still up even. Okay, thank you for that. Motion carries. Lastly, we have approval of PBC regular meeting minutes for April 4. Any comments on those minutes? Hearing none, call for the vote, or looking for a motion, please.
I'll make that motion, President.
Thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Butler. We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments on the motion? Hearing none, call for the vote, please.
Jordan Canuho,
Abstain.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Thank you, Council. Motion carries. That concludes our minutes. Next up here are Pawnee Business Council Committee reports. And we'll just start at the end of the table with Councilwoman Kimball. Sammy, the floor is yours.
Over the last few weeks, I did have a cemetery committee meeting wherein we are still redlining the policy there. I did not have a Thadaha meeting yet. I could not get a quorum for that. I've also, in that, we are almost completed with the policy for the cemeteries. And I'd like to put it out there again, and I don't know who to call or what, but the committee is interested in having a mausoleum built at the North Cemetery for those people that want to be cremated and the ashes there on our hill there. And so I haven't done any legwork on it. I will figure that out. We are also, as a budget item, we are also wanting to reach out to the Otos who are building monuments now, marble monuments, and we'd like to get a very small monument for those graves that are unmarked. And we're thinking that they shouldn't be relatively expensive, but that's something that we'd really like to have in place so that they're not disrupted when we're looking for something. And as a note about no quorums, I've also asked Ms. Gover, little son too, put together a committee calendar. I think it's imperative that we have something that we can all rely on before we set our committee meetings, that day is actually open, because as it turns out, I continually get thrown out because, my team has other committees that they're involved in. So it would really be nice to just have some visibility to that schedule.
And I agree with that. We only have 2 committees right now that have a cadence, and that is intergovernmental affairs and property. And so
It's difficult
it's
for
an
me to
issue.
get a cadence
Yeah.
because people are not on a cadence mode, and I do appreciate that. I do like scheduled meetings. So with that, if we could just have something put out maybe like on Monday so that we know what's going on, it'd be very helpful. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you for that. Dr. Evans?
Yes, sir. All right, Enrollment Committee, I think Mr. Gardepy will cover that. Medical Advisory Committee, we had no activity. Pawnee Nation College, just to say graduation's May 10th. Was it 11 students? Yeah, they're graduating. It's fantastic, which is the largest group that I can remember. So, just saying that I'm feeling good movement out of the college. Our acting president, Stacy Burns, I think is doing a fantastic job. We are doing well on our sustaining grants, our NACTEP grant, and looking at we're in several ag grants, but with more that are on our way, and some of them have potential to do great things along with the Pawnee Nation. Our connection with Nebraska Indian Community College continues to be strong and very positive. I think our past connection with Bacone College is rapidly coming to a full closure, though there is still a little money they owe us. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Evans. Next up is Carol. Floor is yours.
Yes, I also serve on that committee with Dr. Evans, and it is true. There is a lot of very positive things happening with the college, and Ms. Burns is doing an excellent job, as is all the staff over there, and they're very busy and doing some great things, and we're looking forward to working with them closely as we open the new Behavioral Health Center for the careers. They offer many of those career areas, such as CNA, C medical assistants, and just a lot, the coding, which there are going to be many of those jobs available for our people, so we'll be coordinating with them to get our Pawnee people enrolled in those classes, and the council did set aside $25,000 for scholarships for our people to receive training in these areas, preparing them for these future jobs that are going to come open. And I think even broadband was one of them too. Jordan, was there? Or no? But that's another one that is in a future one also. And that's on the college board. And then I'm chair of the budget committee, and of course we have had many budget committee meetings. We have budget committee meetings all the time. So, and they're just pretty standard. Every one of them is the business of running the tribe. So, and we have not had an education meeting. Other than that, that is my report.
Thank you for that, Carol. Vice President Canuho?
Let's see. Hers is off.
Mine's off.
Yeah. Is yours off? Okay. Yeah, they're both off. Hello. Hello. Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Usku, piku, throw it. Test. Okay. All right. Okay. I serve on the planning committee. I'm the chair for the planning committee. We review grants and for the Pawnee Nation. Nothing has come through this past month, and so any grants that any of our programs have, we usually review those and offer any input, any corrections, any suggestions to that. So we just continue to move forward on that regard. I can give an update on some other projects that I'm currently working on. One of them is the Reconnect 3 project. When USDA visited a couple weeks ago, we did have a chance to visit with the USDA Undersecretary Torres Smalls, and one of the items we addressed with them with the Reconnect grant is a waiver for a $25 million ILOC, irrefutable letter of credit for the grant. And we received news last week, I believe it was, that USDA waived that requirement for us. So they're going to be sending us new grant documents for that. So that's a great news for the Pawnee Nation. So we don't have to go look for this letter of credit from our banking or from an outside source to back this $25 million grant. And so Reconnect is, for those who are not familiar with it, Reconnect is going to bring broadband into our jurisdiction. We are using the pole attachments with Indian Electric, and so we are working with Indian Electric on this as well. And this will bring broadband into our jurisdiction, also into the Otoe, Missouri jurisdiction, and we're still working on a resolution with the Ponca tribal jurisdiction as well. So so that's one of the updates for Reconnect. The Rural Energy Pilot Program, if you were here a couple weeks ago when Undersecretary Torres Small came up to Pawnee Nation along with Director Kenneth Korn with Oklahoma USDA, they presented the tribe with a $2 million award for Rural Energy Pilot Program. This is for solar, this is for geothermal, this is for weatherization study as well for the Pawnee Nation and the housing. We're going to have a kickoff meeting with the stakeholders in Pawnee Nation next week. One of our partners, TribuQuint, will be down for that meeting, and we'll be meeting with our stakeholders, with Indian Electric, University of Oklahoma, Pawnee Nation College, the Housing Authority, and TribuQuint, and we'll start to begin that process for that as well. And then lastly, I haven't been too involved with this one, but it is a grant that we also got as well, which is, I believe it's through NTIA, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the Affordable Connectivity Program. I just call it ACP. That one is going to help bring, what it's going to do is we're going to train some of our workers. We're looking at the WEX workers. We're going to be working through our education department and train a few workers to, basically it's boots on the ground type of thing, where we're going to go and just have them answer a survey, and also to show them the affordable connectivity program that's available through the I want to say it's through the FCC, if I'm not mistaken. They would be eligible to have I guess assistance, I think is what it is, for lowering their cost of broadband. So what the end goal is to help make broadband affordable to citizens, tribal, non-tribal citizens, and so that'll be starting off as well. So those are the three programs that we have going on currently right now that I've been working on with that. So other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Vice President. And with that, Secretary Gardapi, turn the floor to you, sir.
So enrollment, enrollment committee, we didn't meet. This is the last time we had council meeting. And also, we did have one ag meeting to where we came up with the MOU between the Pawnee Ag Committee and the Seed Preservation Society. So not much of an update there. The Ag Committee did agree on a MOU with Pawnee Seed Preservation to utilize some of that greenhouse, but that already came through the council already. So that's the only update I have.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Butler, floor is yours.
Thank you. First off, we had a governing documents committee meeting, I think, a couple of times to prepare for the convention meeting that was held on April 15th. And we took some took some articles to the convention floor and made recommendations that will be sent to the people for a vote coming up. We also sent some articles back to the convention work group so that they can look at some of those and make other recommendations if needed. They did schedule another meeting for June. The date escapes me. I think it's June 16th. We'll get the website updated for everybody to look at those dates here shortly, or here probably within this week. The Princess Committee, they had several meetings at the end of March and at the beginning in the middle of April in preparation for the Princess Coronation and Dance, which was held on April 23rd. And we do have a new Pawnee Nation princess. Her name is Karen Rice, and we're excited to see all of the things that she's going to be doing for her representation of the Pawnee Nation. We also wanted to thank Quinlan Spears for her representation during her reign. You know, we saw her mature and the growth that she had during her reign, and we're so excited to see what she does in the future. And do want to thank her for all of the representation that she did. And we're proud of her and proud of her accomplishments as well. I sit on the Chamber of Commerce here in the city of Pawnee, and we had a meeting on April 5th. And they hosted a lot of community events. They had the Easter egg hunt and the ladies' night, and they're going to have some other events in the month of May. And we don't have a meeting this month, but we do have a roundtable coming up in the middle of the month. So I'll keep the council updated on all of those. I think they're going to get a newsletter sent out, and I'll forward it on to you guys once we get that. But I also attended the Pawnee Nation's Employee Club Easter egg hunt on the 7th, and then the women's double ball demonstration presentation that was done by the tour program. I didn't participate because, you know, I didn't want to be rolling down the hill, and I was teasing some of the girls. It's like, I am an old woman now. But that was interesting to watch, and it was fun to watch all the ladies get out there and participate and, you know, talk with each other. They're trying to get that restarted back up, and Adrian and his group are doing a really good job in doing that. And it was a really good demonstration. He sat everybody down, and we were able to listen to, you know, what it entailed, what they used it for, and why they played back in the day. So that was a really good demonstration. I really enjoyed that. Also attended the administrative professionals reception that was held. This is something that's been held for, I think, the past 9 to 10 years, and I'm always glad because, you know, I came as administrative assistant. I came from that field, so it was really good to see to bring all those women together and to just honor them with a reception and for their accomplishments, because they are part of the backbone of the Pawnee Nation. It's just that everybody always says they're just paper pushers. No, they help get things done. All of this stuff right here is done by our administrative professionals, and I do want to thank them. And you know, because the whole month of April was dedicated for administrative professionals, and we couldn't really get things done behind the scenes without our administrative professionals. So I do want to thank them. So Jamie and Sky and all of the other ones that work for the Pawnee Nation, they are appreciated. I also attended the swearing in. I was invited to go and do this, and I was glad I did, because I was the only representative to do this. Tribal member Sammy Davis, she ran for Perry City Council, and for the city of Perry, and she was elected. And I was honored to go and to support her. She was excited, you know, for me to be there. And I just wanted to go and give her some words of encouragement and encourage her to come this way, run for Pawnee Business Council, maybe in a couple of years. But I'm just glad that, you know, as a tribal member, she's putting herself out there, and she wanted to do something for her community and wanted to be a part of her community. And I think that that's important, that we support our tribal members in that way. So I was able to attend her swearing in on April 17th, and just wanted to let her know, if she's watching, that we're really proud. I'm really proud of you, and I'm glad, and I'm be excited to see what she's going to do and accomplish in her community. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I've got a question. How many people attended that convention here that you had?
I think in person, I want to say we had 8.
No, so not very good showing.
And then online, we had the rest of them. So we had 19 total.
Yeah, that's not very great participation, is it?
Well, we have 26 members now.
Yeah.
Were the 8 delegates? There were no Pawnees there, citizens, just delegates?
They're all Pawnee.
I know, but I meant the community.
No, we set chairs out, but there wasn't any.
So
nobody
it was just
came to
really
watch.
nobody but the delegates.
Yeah.
And also, that you're talking about professional admin day and such, isn't that something that the executive office does? Isn't that your role to have that, right, for your admins, our admin team, moving forward? Yeah? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it comes from that office, and I think it should come from your office and your budget moving forward. So, thanks.
It was a really good event. So, but and encourage anybody else to attend whenever events like that come up, because, like I said, George and I actually sponsored the meal for them.
Yeah, we
did the
read
reception.
that, and you got that, okay? It is it's an election year, and I get it. But I think that should come out of the executive office. No harm, no foul. I'm just saying that for the continuum, it's important to recognize those individuals, and I know they appreciate that as well. So, thank you.
I just want to make one more comment. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be controversial, but no, George and I sponsored it last year too, and the year before that. So it's the third year we've sponsored since I've been on council, and I felt like, coming from that office, I just felt that it should have been continued. I like to see those things happen because, like I said, I came from that field, I came from that background. So I just wanted to clarify that. But we did sponsor the last 3 years of it in some way.
Thank you for that, Cynthia. Donna, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I chair two committees. One is the Property Committee and the other is the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. And both of them have been meeting regularly. As chair of the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, I attended a consultation session. There has been some national the National Telecommunications and Information Administration is under the U.S. Department of Commerce, and they've been developing a national spectrum therapy strategy. And so they held some listening sessions, some general listening sessions in March, and then also on March 30th, and then also on April 11th. They held tribal listening sessions on they had two, and the one I attended was April 20th. They offered one on April 18th. And so Scott Harris, the national director of the National Spectrum Strategy, and their senior technical expert, Austin Bonner, they were in charge of, they were on this consultation. So what the spectrum strategy is, it's an important initiative, and what they're trying to accomplish is to identify spectrum current and future technological use to improve and benefit all Americans. So they asked a series of questions to the tribal leaders that were on there, and just a few of them were answering the questions. And so the questions they were asking was, how can transparency be improved in allocation procedures to increase tribal nations' trust in the process? What they're trying to do right now, and it's dealing with airspace and telecommunications, and they're trying to make sure that the tribes are included. So what actions or recommendations would you promote the deployment and availability of the next-gen products to tribal lands? And so they had some responses from some tribal leaders on that, and that they one of them said that we don't want to be wards any longer, wards of the government. We are sovereigns, and we want to be treated as such. And and so that was a lot of what the comments were. Is that and they had some concerns about the mapping. The broadband mapping was a concern, and they questioned whether the maps were accurate, and if there are mapping issues all over the place, that tribe was having mapping issues, and asking, are we eligible for it if it's off reservation on the different funding. So the third question, and one point that was made was it's no point for us fighting for something if we're ineligible, to receive it. And so they talked about how the projects have to be financially sustainable, and it's hard to get payback on it when you make projects that are not. So another question is what initiatives on tribal lands or partnerships with tribal government should be considered that would enable the spectrum sharing, and that would meet the needs, and then how to develop an inclusive workforce. And so they talked about sitting down with the BIA and NTIA and develop a process to come up with the answers to work out some of these workforce issues. So I will send this out to the council. I have been editing it, and then one last one was there was any other questions raised by request for questions that are interest to tribal lands, and they said the higher spectrum on our lands. And so this is all still pretty new to a lot of people, and I know that Jordan has and Sammy have pretty well taken the lead in dealing with the broadband and these issues with Pawnee Nation. So I will forward this to you. Yeah, and then the other committee that I chair is property, and one of the things, something that's coming up, and this hasn't really come through property committee, I got it from the Chilocco alumni. They've been trying to get a meeting of Chilocco treaty tribes to look at, renovating a building, and they haven't really had much success in doing that. I was contacted by them, and they said that with Marie Jenkins, and they said that they're planning an alumni cleanup. So for any Chilocco people who would be interested, they plan two cleanup dates on the 13th and the 27th, and so they're welcoming people to come up. She'd asked me if I could try to get a meeting set up during that time, so I'll make that request, but I haven't been very successful in getting meetings set up for the Chilocco tribes. And that's all my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, next up is the Pawnee Business Council travel requests. Folks, you got any travel in the offing?
No.
Hearing none. How about, well, I guess it's just PBC travel. So.
I'm sorry. I was trying to think of the name of it. The self-governance conference that's coming up in June. I would be interested in attending. I think it's in Tulsa. But I'm throwing my name in for that.
Jamie,
Sorry.
can we still register for that in Tulsa without staying at the hotel? Would you mind signing me up as well, please? I think Cynthia wants to attend as well. Thank you.
What did the council do with regard to the Sovereignty Symposium? Did the travel requests already go in for that? Okay.
I have a couple of things. One will be the sovereignty, tribal sovereignty event happening in June, and then I was contacted last week from Ms. Tara Argo with the tribal. I guess there's a tribal energy consortium that's going to be starting here in Oklahoma. That date will be May 23rd at Osage Casino Hotel. So I'll be attending that. That'll be from 9 to 2. They said there's seating limited to 2 representatives, so if there's another representative that would like to go, that's open there.
Sounds good. So are you putting in a travel request for that then?
Since they're both in Tulsa, I'll just stay home.
You're not going to spend the night.
I need a night stay at both of those, River Spirit and also
There you go.
kind of more just letting council know that's where I'll be on those ones there, and letting our people know as well if they have any questions about those.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like something we ought to be part of.
Also, I saw today, and maybe it is in our mail. Maybe it is. It's the one that's in Pachanga. Did that come through our email today, or did I read it somewhere else?
Yeah, Misty had forwarded that to me. It's 4 conferences in one.
Right.
And it's housing, gaming, commerce,
Yes.
economic development, and I think energy.
That would really be
All in
that's what
one.
I thought. That'd really be a good one, Jordan. That's out just north of San Diego. It's only 2 days. It's the 6th and the 7th, I think, if I recall, June 6th and 7th.
If you could circulate that to the council, they
Yes,
could
I
take a
did
look
today.
at
She
it.
did.
Oh, you
Yep,
did?
That's where I
Okay.
read it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other travel-related items?
I'm not requiring any assistance with it, but I'm signed up for the Sovereignty Symposium also already.
Excellent. Yes, that's good. That's always a good one to go to. Anything else, folks? Okay. Good enough. I guess that concludes that item. So let's move now to old business. Trying to get done soon, Vice President.
President, do we need to make a motion to vote
On what? Oh, do we need a motion to approve these travel requests? Yes.
I'll
Looking
make a
for a
motion.
motion, folks.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Call for a vote, please.
Jordan Knuckle,
Yes.
George Gardner, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Okay, thank you, council. Motion carries. Happy trails to those of you that'll be traveling. Be safe, and it all sounds good. Next item is old business. We have 3 items. The first being approval of Resolution 23-25, Environmental Regulatory Commission removals. And Cynthia, if you would present on that, I'd appreciate that, if you would, please.
So, I don't want to be controversial, but this resolution came from the request that was being done for to remove the 3 seated commissioners on the Environmental Regulatory Commission, and I guess for reorganization. But I don't see, and don't don't get me wrong, President Eckhoff. One of them is already open, so I don't see why we can't just fill it with one of those who is going to be interviewed. There's another seat that's coming open at the end of the year in September, October. Why can't we fill it with one of those positions that are the people that are going to be interviewed as well? And the other one's in about a year. So I don't see what the move is for us to do this. Whenever they have term dates, and I understand your reasoning. It's just I did talk to them, and they it's up to the council, it's up to you guys on the decision to do it. I'm just throwing this out there because, and I'm not saying that they were upset. I'm just saying that they didn't see why they were just being removed. We just came out of a pandemic. 2 years they didn't meet because of that. So whether they were inactive or if it's because they were inactive, it just they didn't see that they were given a chance to do anything because of the pandemic. So I'm just throwing that out there because I did talk with them. But it's up to you guys what you want to do. We went ahead and revised the resolution to go ahead and make for the recommendation that was being made by President Echohawk to go ahead and remove the 3 seated members, which is Randy Ledford, Denise Miller, and Howard Echohawk, and then to go ahead and advertise and do interviews, which I think that there were already 3 people who were recommended for the interviews. But it's up to what the council wants to do. I would rather go ahead and just not approve this resolution and just let the interview process for these commissions, the way they're normally done and structured, take place and happen. And that's my recommendation to you guys, but I'll go with what, that's just my suggestion. So,
Yes, thank you for that, Denise. And I must say, I am open to that suggestion. You know, my initial thought was that the Environmental Regulatory Commission has not met even before the pandemic, and I'm feeling a need to try to get it up and rolling with the best possible people that we can. A lot of things are coming together with respect to strengthening our environmental laws and policies through the negotiations with the EPA and also the Department of Interior on a fracking MOU. Plus, we have the infrastructure plans that are coming down the pike as well that will require their participation. And so I guess my initial thought was let's remove them all and start the slate clean. I had talked to both Denise and Randy Ledford. They were good with standing down and allowing the council to start with a fresh slate, you know, because Denise, for example, said, you know, we've never met at all during the entire time I've been on the commission. So that was my initial thinking, but you know, this sounds good as well. I had initially wanted to keep both of them on because they both bring a lot to the table. But we didn't have the money to do that, to increase it to 5, you know. So we were forced to go with 3, and thought that we would just wipe the slate clean and go with the advertising and also interviewing, and then going from there. So that was my rationale. I'm also sitting on the fence post because yours is equally good. But that, I just wanted to explain what I was trying to accomplish and why, you know. So I've been trying to get this, make these appointments for a few months now, but I'm certainly, you know, it is up to the council, whatever you guys want to do. So I'm good with either way here.
I tend to agree with Cynthia. I would like to go that route.
I would also agree with Cynthia.
For those who have spoke with our folks from the commission, are they, I mean, does it sound like they're ready to jump in and you know, get a little fire going here and get moving?
They both bring a lot. I really like Randy Ledford because he is all about our indigenous plants. He's very, very familiar with Pawnee plants, medicine plants, and other plants of uses in our area here. And I think that brings a lot, would add a lot to the work of the commission. And Denise, you know, she's a traditional person that is also very sharp, very intelligent, educated, that could also do that and I'm sure that they would, as I say, I really wanted to keep them originally for those reasons, you know, and I know that they would both do their best, you know, and are ready to participate. Some of my thinking, though, is that commission, it's a quasi adjudicatory body that hears enforcement proceedings and stuff like that, engages in rulemaking and stuff like that. So I think they really need an attorney, but we have a few attorneys that are interested in serving, you know. So I think that if we maybe filled the vacant seat with one of those attorneys, that would round them out, and then when their terms expire, you know, we could add them with these others, you know. But I'm wanting a real strong environmental commission. That's my recommendation to this body, because I think that protecting our environment is extremely important, and we do have cases pending and negotiations ongoing. We do live in a warming world. We see animals and plants disappearing from the face of the earth, and trying to enter into green energy to survive and flourish, you know, in a warming world. So their work is very important. That's a very important commission in my way of looking at our legal framework and our policy framework. Listening to Cynthia, you know, we could go either way. As I said, I'm good either way here. So.
Is this,
I
I have
agree
a
to keep them.
question. Is it, I'm sorry, Carol. I have a question. Is this something that maybe Monty could lead? I mean, he is our environmentalist, right?
Yes, and I had talked this over with Monty, and,
Yeah.
and he was good with wiping the slate clean and starting fresh, for the reasons I've mentioned, you know. But again, I'm sure he'll be good with this as well. You know, I think he'll. I hate to speak for him, but I think he can play it either
Yeah,
way. You
and
know.
Randy, he brings a lot to the table. Mr. Ledford brings a lot to the table. But I'd really like to see Monty somehow have his, you know, hand in the game as well. I think that would really be important for us. I mean, he knows
Yeah.
all about us.
Yeah, I have nothing but the highest respect for Monty, and we're lucky to have him all these years. And I continue to work very closely with him on all of the environmental issues that we have. So, yeah. It sounds to me that there's a consensus to going with Cynthia, her proposal, and as I say, I'm fine with that, folks. So
Okay.
the only thing that I'm asking is that we get that up and rolling soon, not later, but soon, you know. So I would like to, if we can act this evening to get a resolution in place, that way we can fill that empty seat on there as soon as we're able.
I'll make a motion to withdraw Resolution 2325. And I guess to proceed with advertising for the positions or even in interviews.
The empty
To fill the
seat
positions.
and the interviews. Okay. Okay. Is there a second to this motion, folks?
I'll second it.
Thank you for that, Donna. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote if you would, Mr. Secretary.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardefee, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Oh,
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Tammy Kimball.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. Next item is approval of 1006-850 Princess Committee Budget Mod Number 4.
This was brought back, this is coming back to the council, and this was brought a couple of meetings ago, and I didn't think that because the last budget mod that I saw in the budget, in the council meeting was a different number. So the numbers weren't matching, so they fixed it. So what we're doing is we're adding that $179.77 into supplies, and I think this was from the hand game that we had at the end of the year. So it brings the total for the Princess Committee $11,465.77. And we're just bringing that back from the Budget Committee from that council meeting.
Thank you for that. Folks, are there any questions or comments on this?
I do. I have a question, and I posed it to Cynthia a little bit earlier, and I think that there was some misunderstanding within the council and the role that the Princess Committee really does, right? They are responsible for, they've done a great job. You know, everything, their dance was beautiful, the food was great. They selected a Karen Rice, for all of you that might be listening tonight, is the granddaughter of Ron and Minnie Rice. Her mom is Michelle Rice Reed, out of down by the city. She's brings a lot to the table. She's a great student and active in her culture, in our culture here, and also an athlete. So we're really glad to have her. And I really want to support the Princess Committee. When we originally founded it, it was me that wanted to do it. That was my deal. I wanted us to have representation at events, not only here within our nation, but also outside for our neighboring tribes, the town of Pawnee, and what have you. So I think it's a really important role, and I think it's an important committee because it really puts us out there in the mainstream. So with that, Cynthia had posed a question early on if we supported the Princess to go down to Anadarko. I'm not a big fan of Anadarko. I think I've said that before. They don't have a lot of support down there. The committee in itself is split. They don't have any, the Comanches have pulled all their funding from it, so it's very small, and it really is kind of an imposition for our Princess to go down there. She's got to supply an evening of our cultural events. And so we've got, the committee's got to get singers and what have you, and it's just a lot. But we, as a council, said, you know what, we don't want to support that. And I'm sorry, because I was probably the main one saying, I don't want to support that thing. But at the end of the day, we are sending our Princess down there. She's got to have a hotel room. We also have we have a, what do you call her, a director? The director, our Princess director for Anadarko Indian Fair is also having to go down there. There's gifts to buy. They have to buy gifts for all the other princesses. There's food to be bought. And I just really don't want to have your hands tied to do that. I want to say that much. So I think if maybe we could just get a yes, it's cool by everybody here, that you guys do what you need to do to make it happen without stressing out and having any kind of misunderstanding for your team, okay? So I support it, and they've already got a budget of $11,000. They have funds to go down there. It depends on how much they want to spend, of course, but I don't want them to think that they've got to go out there and sell tickets or something, so somebody could go down there and represent our people. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you,
So I'm good with
Sammy.
it, and I'd like to just go down the rung. How about you, Doc? Are you good with that?
Yeah. Dare to dream. Anyway, well, I would, I surely support our Princess program, and I think, it's just fantastic what the committee does and has done. And I support them in anything they do. And if we're going and doing this is what you want to do and you feel we need to do, I'm all for it.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I think if the funds are there and the support's there for her to, do what she needs to do down there, I'm supportive of it.
Thank you. I would leave it up to the discretion of the committee on what you feel is best, and if you got money for it in your budget. And I too think the world of our princesses. They've done such a splendid job as a matter of Pawnee pride, representing us, in different places. And I had so I endorse whatever the committee wants to do. Are you guys planning on going to White Shield this summer? Okay, we've got a couple rooms for you up there. So anyway, it's awesome what she's doing, and our new one. I'm looking forward to great things there. Thanks.
Yes, of course I support it. I think the Princess Committee is doing a fantastic job, and the dance you guys had was amazing. And I got to help cook on that one, and that was a great experience for myself. So I'm appreciative of what the Princess Committee does, and yeah, I support that too.
I support the Princess Committee and their decision.
Thank you. We do appreciate that, and I know the committee will appreciate you guys' support, because that, we're just trying to do what we can do to mentor these young ladies and to help them and to raise the money for them to represent the nation. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so going back then to this budget mod, do we need take action on it? I'm looking for a motion then at this point to approve.
I would move that we approve.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canugo,
Yes.
George Gardner, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
All right, thank you, council. Motion carries. Next up is approval of PBC special meeting minutes. Darn, I thought we were done with the minutes. Old business, okay. PBC special meeting minutes, April 8, 2023. Yeah, you're right, February 8, 2023. Any comments on these minutes, folks?
I do, President Cog.
Yes, ma'am.
On line 191, Nasharo. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, folks?
I don't have any comments, but I do want to thank the staff for redoing these. I think these were sent back at my request because of just the reporting and stuff like that. I thought that was important that we get what was actually reported in these quarterly meetings, because we're asked of a lot to come and bring those forward. But I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve these minutes. Any discussion on the motion, folks? Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canugo,
Yes.
George Gardner, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. And I also want to thank the staff for dealing with these minutes as well. Appreciate that. Next up is new business. Approval of Resolution 23-26, Pawnee Nation College collection of damages. And I see that our Attorney General is with us. And Chad, good evening and welcome. Welcome to our meeting. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to turn the floor over to you, sir, if you would, please.
President, you vote up, do you want me to explain the situation with Bacon?
Yes, I'd like a little background. Let me ask, but before you proceed, folks, since this is involving litigation, um, and bringing suit against another entity, it seems like maybe this ought to be an item for executive session. Does that make sense, folks? What is your recommendation? It sounds like this ought to be a executive session discussion. Chad, would you advise that? Did you hear my question?
Are you talking to me, President?
Yes,
It's
I'm
me,
sorry. Yeah,
except there's a lot of echo.
yeah. There's some.
We will discuss the reasons for bringing the lawsuit. Basically,
Well, let me just interrupt you for a
the
second.
Pawnee Nation College has already approved
Chad, if you
this
could hold on a
litigation.
second. Chad, there's some feeling here that we should convene a quick executive session to talk about the litigation. And do you think that would be well advised on our part to discuss this in executive session? Since it does involve litigation against an outside entity.
Yeah. All you got to do is listen to the news or read a paper. Everybody knows that Bacon has gone down, right?
Yeah, I know, but I think we should do this in executive session. So if I could ask for a motion here, and we'll have this discussion in executive session outside of the public.
President Ecklock, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add executive session under new business.
Thank you for that, sir. Is there a second, folks?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. To add it to the agenda to go into executive session. Any discussion, folks, on the motion, please? Hearing none, call for the vote if you would please, sir.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
No, I like transparency. Thank you.
Thank you for that, council. Motion carries. So next, I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session, please.
I'll make a motion to go into
This won't be very long, folks. If you could just bear with us, I think it's important to discuss this in executive session. Did I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion, folks? Call for the vote if you would.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Yes.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Thank you so much, council. Motion carries. So we will make our way into executive session. And folks, with my apologies, if you could bear with us for just a little while, I don't think this item will take very long. Allow us to go into our executive session here and take care of this business.
Does anybody want Habakkuk 0? We're good? I already got a shot in mine. I'll bet.
I'm off the pop. I want it.
Oh, you're off pop? Good for you.
Though, but I won't.
Gotta have it. Yeah. Oh, did we lose some? Looks like we lost some.
Okay, so let's go back into session here, open session. I'm looking for a motion to come back into open session, please.
I'll make the motion to come back into open session.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to come back into open session. Any further discussion on the motion, please? Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
You're going back in.
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Tammy Kimball.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carries. We are back in open session. Welcome back, folks. Thank you for your patience with us while we had our attorney-client discussion. And based on our discussion, we went over this resolution. We made some edits. And so at this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve this resolution with 2 edits. The first would be in the third whereas clause, first line, to change the word entering into the word enter. And then the second change here would be to delete the next to the last whereas clause. And so based on our discussion with our legal counsel, I'm looking for a motion to approve this resolution as amended.
President Eckhawk, I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2326 as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you, folks. We have a motion and a second. And are there any other discussion on this motion, please, folks? Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And I want to thank the Attorney General for his legal assistance in this matter. And I wish you all the best in working with the Pawnee Nation College Board in this matter going forward. And we'll get this resolution for you cleaned up and signed and returned to you this week. So appreciate your presentation, Attorney General. And I believe we can move on now with our agenda to open forum. I see that we have some tribal members here this evening. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to our Business Council meeting and ask if there are any of our tribal members here that would like to address the council. This is your time, please.
President Cock, I'd like to have just something to say.
Sure.
I wanted to thank Jennifer and the team that's working on the elders. I'm not sure what program it is. I thought it might be, I know it's not LIHEAP, but it's something similar to that, paying the utility bills for the elders. The home improvement plan. Yeah, that has been really well organized and thoughtful, and they were really I can only speak, for my mom, who was able to go down there, and she wasn't rattled. Sometimes they get kind of rattled, they don't know what to take, and everybody was really good about it, and I wanted to recognize that team tonight. I know it's not on the agenda, but anybody that is within the jurisdiction or the county of Pawnee, be sure and look at Jadix or the Pawnee chief and find out what the requirements are. There's just a few little bullets that you have to bring in, and one of them is your deed. And if you don't have your deed, then you have to go up to the courthouse. And I had to take her to the courthouse.
And the deadline's tomorrow.
And the deadline's tomorrow. So if you haven't done it, do it. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you for that. Is there any tribal members in? Last call. This is last call.
I have something,
Yes.
President Echo.
Yes.
First of all, before I start, I want to pass this out because I'm going to ask some questions. And here goes. Okay. This is my question is going to be about reporting on PNDRIPA, our law on implementation, the Pawnee Nation Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And the reason I'm bringing this forward is a couple of meetings ago, we had one of our tribal members here, Ella Mae Blackowl, who specifically asked for a report from the Intergovernmental Committee on different things. And I am all for transparency, and I would like to bring these two articles, letters, to the attention of the council because I have some questions about it. One of them is a letter written October 26, 2022, and it is to the Native American Rights Fund, John Echohawk, and the Colorado University School of Law. And it is a request for assistance from the National Implementation Project. And it is asking for their assistance to implement this PNDRIPA. And there are two, there was discussion on this, and there were two, attorneys, Sue and Allison, proposed a strategy to contact appropriate state, local, and tribal representatives and prompt them to carry the ball forward. They believe Colorado legislation might be low-hanging fruit to set a national precedent with our new implementation of the PNDRIPA. Now, this letter submits a request for assistance from the National Implementation Project to carry out Sue and Allison's suggested plan. And it states that project assistance would not only help implement the new Pawnee law, but also advance project goals at the same time. And I would just like to ask, as an elected body and as elected officials elected by the Pawnee people, why weren't we told this, that we were letting someone develop a strategy for us and that they're going forward to set a national precedent with this? And why are we advancing these two programs' implementation goals? We are the elected leaders, and I think this is pretty important that the PBC should have been involved in the discussion. Also, With it is, it's called NARF's Proposed Legislation Plan. It has timeline, hours. A lot of attorneys are obviously working on this for policy development, creation of advocacy materials, hours of stakeholder work, hours for the legislative process, a very in-depth timeline to deal with legislators, advocacy groups, legislative champions, negotiations, such as the governor's administration in Colorado and any entities or individuals that may raise objections to the policy. It's very detailed. Again, my question is, this is very in-depth and it involves attorneys in other states. We, as the elected council, were never, maybe I missed a meeting or something. Did we approve something this big? Did this come to the council? I mean, to me, I'm just, that we would use our law for another organization's goals. So I don't know. I would like some answers from somebody.
Yes, I'm happy to answer that. As you recall, the PNDRIPA law was enacted by the Business Council in May of last year. And Section 6 of that act, it asks for calls upon the President of the United States and the states of Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, and Colorado to implement the declaration provisions into their laws and policies. And then it also asks that Section 6 also requests the President of the United States to develop a national plan to implement the UNDRIP in partnership and consultation with tribal nations, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians. And so with that law being on the books, and of course the Pawnee Nation is governed by the rule of law, and I know that this was a controversial statute, causing a very vigorous debate over it. I think that made this an improved piece of legislation that was approved by the majority of the Business Council. And so as president, it's my job to implement decisions made by the Business Council. And so in that regard, I had been researching and thinking about how we could go about implementing this law and the associated policy, and the resolution that enacted it set out a Pawnee Nation policy as well. And so I was trying to develop a proposed implementation plan for going about doing this. That was kind of a minimalist plan that conserved our time and our energy and resources here at the Pawnee Nation about how to go about doing that. And I had mentioned to the council I was in the process of developing a plan. Last month, this was on the agenda of the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. And I had developed a written plan and circulated it to the committee so that they could be briefed about it. It's under deliberation by the committee. There's different proposals on the tribal level, the state level, and the federal level that basically would implement those provisions that I just went over in Title VI of the Act. And it's my hope that once the intergovernmental affairs, because it deals with intergovernmental affairs with our tribe internally here, but also with the federal government and those 4 states that are within the Pawnee Nation Aboriginal homeland. And so what was going to take place there was once the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee determined what of these recommendations they would want to go with, any modifications or changes or additions, then I was looking for any recommendations that might come from that committee that would be presented to this business council. And so, Carol, I don't think you were present at that. You're a member of that committee, but you weren't there last week when this was on the agenda.
I guess,
so-
well, I'm pretty familiar with it
Yeah.
all. I was one of the main debaters.
Right.
And at the time that we were debating it, we were told this was not being implemented.
I don't,
The other words were used to lead people that it was not implementation.
well, I think that it calls for a few nudges, basically. I think on the tribal level, as I mentioned in my draft plan, and you've got a copy of it, you were circulated a copy of the draft plan as a member of the committee. There's really nothing that needs to be done on the Pawnee Nation level because we have no history of human right violations of our members other than to just consult this policy as we go forward to make sure we're not violating anyone's human rights.
I guess one of the things that
If you could
really
just let me finish,
Okay.
I'd appreciate that.
I thought you were through.
Then on the federal level, there's really nothing other that remains to be done. But as part of my research, I contacted Jennifer, and I sat down with a couple White House officials. We gave them a copy of the statute, pointed their attention to Article 6 about what is being requested by the government, and left it at that. So there's really nothing left to do, in my judgment, with regard to the federal implementation, other than possibly Intergovernmental Affairs can monitor any developments, you know.
One of my concerns.
And then, if you'll let me finish, I'd appreciate it.
I'm sorry, you talk real
Yeah.
slow. I'm sorry.
Sorry. And then, but on the state level, my research, and I reached out, I talked to different people. It appeared to me that, based on consulting with NARF, that, and they have a staff attorney there, this Allison Nesswood, who's very familiar with the way Colorado legislatures and their state government, governor's office, attorney general's office, they felt that Colorado was probably very open and receptive to doing what Section 6 requested, that is, for Colorado to implement the provisions of the UNDRIP into Colorado state law. And so in visiting with them, you know, I had asked if they would consider providing legal representation to the president in trying to implement this. As it turns out, a NARF took a look at this back in December, and they determined just a few weeks ago that yes, they could represent the Pawnee Nation pro bono, that is at no cost, and that they would be sending a proposed letter of engagement that would be reviewed by the Business Council. And so I haven't received that letter yet. It's still, I guess I'm still waiting on that. But in the meantime, I did bundle all of this up. I presented it to the Intergovernmental Affairs last month. They made no decision other than to receive the same documents that I provided to Carol. I presume that the committee will be looking at this further at our next meeting, this month's meeting, and come up with whatever recommendation that they will be going with. So this is a work in progress, basically, and the effort would be, and as I'm visiting with NARF here, as I say, they're willing to do this work on a pro bono basis. That would be no expense. And the Pawnee Nation wouldn't have any travel involved. I think at most the Intergovernmental Affairs or the incoming president would step into my shoes on any backup support that might be needed. And they would basically do all of the heavy lifting there. We wouldn't have to go to Colorado. So for our part, assuming this council would agree at the whenever we receive the proposed retainer letter to allow NARF to go forward, we would just be doing telephone work, maybe a few letters here over the next year or so during the next legislative session at NARF. And that would implement that section with regard to Colorado of our law, asking Colorado to do that. And it's my thought and my recommendation in the implementation plan that I had put together for that's being reviewed right now on a committee level, that neither Oklahoma, Kansas, or Nebraska are the politics aren't right yet in those states, but that if Colorado were to pass a law, it could set a precedent, a legislative precedent for these other states whenever the stars align and their political landscape improves, you know. So it was my thinking that if we could at least do that with regard to Colorado, that it could have a beneficial impact on implementing these provisions with respect to the other 3 states that are listed there. And the reason we wanted to include the states is to try to ensure that the indigenous human rights of our members who travel into these states or live in these states, that those rights will be recognized by those jurisdictions. So to protect them, as well as to our sacred sites and our sensitive places in those other states as well. So as I say, Carol, this letter that you're talking about here, October 26th, was part of my research. I knew and I know that I don't have the travel money or the resources or the budget to go marching off to Colorado to get a law passed. But if the NARF organization that's already familiar with the state political system, and they felt, as I mentioned, would very well may be open to something of this nature, something like what British Columbia did up at Canada and the Canadian Parliament, that could move the ball forward here. And so, as I say, as president, it's my job to implement decisions made by this body. I know as that this was a controversial act, and it was very vigorously debated, and then a decision was made. As long as it's on the books, I have to discharge my responsibility to try to implement it as best that I can within the resources I have. And so I had put together, given it much thought in my spare time, and had come up with what I think is a doable plan. It's a minimalist approach, doesn't involve any travel or any money on our part, and would just, I think, implement this, declare victory and implement it, you know. And so that's the background, and you all were going to be receiving the recommendations by the Intergovernmental Affairs and get a briefing at that time. But as I say, that's a work in progress right now. So I don't know if there's any questions you have. I know, Carol, that you were against it, but
Treasurer Chapman.
Treasurer Chapman, I'm sorry. I know you were against it. And I respect that, you know, and I do want to thank you for that, because I think that this this tribal legislation is a much better product as a result of those debates, you know. And I think that even though sometimes we come out into the minority, but once a decision is made, we just have to go with it and move forward. And so that this is one example of that. And so much of this implementation will take place in the next administration. It'll be up to this council and working with, as I envision it, I think that the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee will able to keep tabs on what takes place in Colorado, do whatever they need to do to support it from here in Pawnee. Anyway, that's
I have a couple comments on this, President.
sure.
I'm going to ask a couple questions, so please bear with me. One of the questions I have to our council is, well, first of all, Treasurer Chapman let me know about this probably a few weeks ago, and when I read it, I was kind of surprised. I was surprised. I shouldn't say kind of surprised. I was surprised because something like this needs to be brought to the people, in my opinion, of anything that's going to be going out to any kind of state and everything else like that. I take it as, and it was the same thing as we were discussing it and debating it whenever this whole thing came to our attention, was that I looked at it as that Pawnee Nation was just going to be handed over in some form or fashion to do some kind of implementation. Here we have it to the Native American Rights Fund, and my question is to our council members here who voted to approve this is, did you expect us to be handed over into the hands of NARF to do this? To be basically Pawnee Nation is placed in their hands. They're going to go and do all the legwork and everything else. Because in my opinion, what I thought was that we were just going to send a letter to the states and say, this is our law that we passed, implement it however it sees fit. And to be quite honest and blunt about it, is that this is something that I seen whenever we were arguing it. President, this is something that you've done. I said it even when we was talking about it. You wrote a book about it, and so obviously this is something you're passionate about. This is something that you want to see happen and everything like that. Obviously, other tribes have not done this, and so this was definitely something that came up that you wanted to see happen. And so, I mean, it passed, 3-4 vote, but it passed. And my question to those who voted on this is that what you envisioned? Because that's certainly not what I envisioned happening.
I'll answer, Vice President. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my vote for this was to endorse it from our Pawnee Nation side, not to implement here. And that's what it does say. You're referencing Section 6. It is that it's a policy that we voted on. But we also did vote to call on those outside entities, and those are the 4 states that he mentioned. And so as far as this goes, no, I didn't know to this extent, but I do know that we voted to at least endorse it in other places for implementation, not here. And I still stand by that vote. And I just didn't feel like, those 46 articles, yes, we don't violate that here at Pawnee Nation. Does our federal government? Yeah, possibly. Other state governments, possibly. So that's where I was at. I mean, that's why I voted for this. And again, it was controversial, and that's why I didn't vote to implement. So.
But it is implementing.
Thank you for that, George. If I could just, I forgot to say one thing. With regard to Colorado, I present in my draft plan, I presented two options to the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. One was to go forward with NARF's help and actually see a law introduced and lobbied through. But the second one is merely, as you say, Vice President, is simply to write a letter to their governor, their attorney general, and some of their key lawmakers. And so that's out there too. And so I presented really two options to the committee. And so, as I say, they're going to be taking that up. Presumably at their next monthly meeting, but there are two options that I laid out. One is more robust, and the other is just simply writing a letter.
Okay.
So,
Councilwoman Butler.
Yeah, I voted for it, and just like our Secretary Gardaby was saying, that was part of my understanding of what it was too. I didn't know that we were going to be actively going out and doing this, which, that on his part, that's what, as it was said, was his passion to do that. I do think that it's still at the council level to make that decision on how we move forward with it. I haven't read the proposals yet. It's on the flagged email because we do have an intergovernmental affairs meeting next week. But you know, I'll read it, and when it comes to this level, make a decision. And like you said, I might lean towards just writing a letter to the states and being done with it. You know, because we did our part, we did what we came in to do, and it passed. So it's up to the rest of this council on how we move forward with that. You know, since he's not going to be here to champion that, you know, this is his part of what he wanted to do and implement. So I think that it's up to the rest of us who are going to be here.
Yeah.
Yes, just to add to that, I just did research and came up with some proposals that are under review. And so, as I mentioned, it's a work in progress that will ultimately come back to this body, you know, so.
I find these polls tonight interesting. These polls that are not on the agenda, I find them interesting. So to answer from me, it's still in committee. We have been looking at it. It will come to council when, if it passes committee, and that's my response. Oh, and for NARF, I am in favor of using any national Indian organizations that is going to help Pawnee Nation advance.
Councilman Evans.
I did not have an expectation that we would go well, I did not know which direction this would completely play out. I did expect, as I remember saying at the time, that, you know, the idea of this kind of thing is to start a movement, you know, that builds from small and hopefully gets large, and moves to something that is great for both the Pawnee Nation and for tribes across the country. I surely don't see that as something that we shoulder, other than playing our small part. So, and that's the way I see it, is we need to play our small part, but I do not see us as being the main force, the face of this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
I appreciate those responses. I just wanted to kind of get an understanding, at least where we are on this, because I'm more of. Well, I was just asking from those who voted for it. Yeah, I just wanted to see, because I mean that's to me that I seen this more as, okay, well, just a letter to the states and be done with it at that end there. That accomplishes that portion of the act that was enacted through resolution. I think the other thing that frustrated me whenever I read this was it was dated back on October 26, 2022 from the Intergovernmental Affairs. There's two things I have with this is, and it was something that I mentioned whenever we were talking about the Evening Star, and I'm not going to hash that anything else other than to bring up that these committees in themselves seem to have more authority within themselves to act on themselves and do things outside of council and everything else, outside of this elected body here, and this was one of them here. If we wanted to engage with NARF, then that should have been brought at least to us to engage with. I mean, we didn't even get that option. We didn't even get that opportunity to even consider that. That was decided upon in the Intergovernmental Affairs after consulting with the Pawnee Nation's Intergovernmental Affairs Committee about this matter. It wasn't after consulting with the Pawnee Nation Business Council. I take offense to that, because I think that, to me, those committees are there to recommend to the council, not for them to make decisions on their own and act upon themselves. That, again, goes back to the fundraising committee dissolving and forming its own 501c3, but that's a whole different topic in and of itself. So I had that issue there, and the other issue that I have is that we did have a tribal member a while back, Miss Ella Mae Blackow, ask about minutes and those kinds of things from committees, and she mentioned the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee specifically. Councilman Hare, you chair that committee. Do you not think that this is something that should have been brought to her attention?
So So,
If I could just interject to clarify, make sure we got our facts straight. I had told both the council and the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee that I was researching some proposed implementation plans.
I know that,
And-
President, but
and-
anytime you keep
and-
interrupting whenever I
well-
ask a question, we're never going to get anywhere. If you want to
Well,
interject,
I-
interject after the fact. I asked her a question, and you keep jumping in every time I'm asking somebody a question.
I'm presiding over this meeting here. I just want to make sure. that-
Preside, yes, but
I-
interject is a whole different
I
thing.
just
You
wanted
know
to
what?
point
Okay,
out.
it's your thing. You wanna
No.
just go ahead and protect it, protect them, do all that
No,
stuff.
all I'm
Fine.
saying is, back in October, I was researching this
Yeah,
without
that's
the
fine,
involvement
okay.
of the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee.
We've heard your 30-minute spill. We've heard it. You researched, you did it.
Yes.
I mean, keep saying it, yes.
And not the committee. I just was able to present my recommendations just last month to the committee. So I just wanted to make sure we're operating on the same set of facts here.
October 26, 2022 doesn't sound like last month to me.
Well, this is a letter from the president. It's not a letter from the Intergovernmental Affairs. It was done part of my research.
Then why did you state Pawnee Nation's intergovernmental affairs if
I-
it doesn't?
Well, I had not, I was just simply doing research at that stage to see if they were interested in helping. And like I say, I didn't get any affirmative. They took 6 months to respond to me. But the committee was not involved in my research. This was something that I was doing on my own.
okay, so this is still in committee. It has not made it out of committee. And we're talking about trip reports and being transparent. What about your trip to Oklahoma City to visit with Mayor Stitt's office? When are we going to hear about that? Or did that happen?
Well, let's just stay on track, okay? Let's stay on point. Let's stay with UNDRIP, and then we can go there. Let's just stay where we're at, because I share that same concern. I share the same concern that this letter went out on October the 26th, and it states, the Pawnee Business Council, in my capacity as the president of the Pawnee Business Council, to request national implementation projects assistance in implementing Articles 4 and 2 of the Pawnee Nation Declaration. But then, in the meeting minutes of April 4th, when Mrs. Teeter requested an explanation of what was going on, your wording, President, with all due respect, says you are researching ways to implement. It would have been a whole lot easier to say, I've sent a letter to NARF to ask for assistance in implementing this. Not you're researching, I mean, you're asking for implementation assistance. So that's a whole different ballgame than just research. And that is kind of like a little play in words, if you will, because if you're researching it, you're sending it to a group saying, how can we make this happen? Not, I need your assistance to make it happen. So.
And to Councilwoman Harris' comment about meeting with Governor Stitt's office, we met with the general counsel over there, and if you recall, Councilwoman Harris, I sent an email out back in October after our initial meeting with OMMA, the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Association, when we met with the director, to this body. Nobody responded to it. I had mentioned that I can set a meeting up with everyone here to give you an update on what happened, what took place, what's the next steps, and you and none of the other council members seemed to respond to it, so I took that as either you guys were okay with how we were going forward or didn't really have an interest in it. I would assume your interest was probably more focused on this NARF letter than it probably was with our business with the Agriculture Initiative, so.
That's your assumption. Yeah, well, we had our council meeting, and we do requests for travel right before that meeting that you had in Oklahoma City. I just don't feel that, I feel that the council should have been apprised of it. We dealt with this with our last president going, meeting without the approval of, meeting with the governor without the approval of the council.
Well, to correct you, we didn't meet with the governor.
with the governor's office.
Thank you.
And just to wrap this up for my own benefit, Donna, can I have a listing of the names for this Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, please?
We have John Echohawk,
Mm-hmm.
Carol Chapman,
Mm-hmm.
Chad
Mm-hmm.
Smith,
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia Butler,
Mm-hmm.
myself, Bruce Pratt, and Lael Echohawk. Yeah.
I have one more comment to end with. I think what I'm hearing is that we dreamed this up and we went to NARF through the president and the Intergovernmental Committee to ask help. NARF has had this project for almost 13 years, I read, and they have tried to get tribes in the United States to go to do what we have done to reach their project goal, their goal. It's not something new that we just took to them and they just, oh, that's a great idea. Now, that did happen. NARF put out a toolkit. There was a forum that used the toolkit. This was all done with the toolkit, which was developed by you, President Echohawk, when you worked for NARF. So it's not just something that we just dreamed up and they're unaware of it. My thing is, I agree with Vice President Canuho. We are the elected body. We did not even know this. We weren't even asked. There is another group of people going and representing us. And I just think something is wrong with our system here, that the committees have more authority than this business council does. And to me, I'm offended that somebody's going to go in and meet with the governors of other states and go get up and talk in front of the legislature when I don't even know who they are, what they're saying. I mean, I think that's insulting to this body right here, that something this serious would go forward. And I just would like to clarify, it wasn't just something we did for them to take over. It was their goal and their project in the first place. We merely carried it out for them.
If I could just respond to that, so we get our facts straight. This NARF implementation project was formed about maybe 3 years ago, long after I left NARF. That toolkit was prepared by that project. I had nothing to do with it. I just want to be sure that we get our facts straight on this. But
I read the toolkit, President Echohawk, and your pictures on the front, and
that's
thanked
right.
you.
They happened to quote
inside
me. They
for
happened to quote
helping-
me, but I
for
didn't
helping
write.
create it.
I did not write or create the toolkit. Just to,
Contribute, excuse me, play on words, wordsmithing.
I
Sorry.
did not write or create the toolkit. I was quoted in it, sure, but I think just in a nutshell, so we can move on with our evening here. The council, the Intergovernmental Affairs does not make any decisions. They make recommendations only to this body. This is a matter that is still under deliberation, and this body will be receiving recommendations for its action as soon as this has been vetted internally. And so I don't, as I say, I spent a lot of time researching this, giving it some thought, talking with people, trying to see who I could get help from in not only Colorado but also Nebraska. I reached out to people up at Haskell for Kansas as well, trying to see what might be doable that we could bring to this body here, and that will take place in due course, you know. So I see your concern. I hear what you're saying, but it's just trying to develop an implementation strategy, and this body will certainly be have a lot of say-so in it, as it should.
I might, if I can, state also, when you go to the NARF webpage and you pull up the implementation project, we, as the Pawnee Nation, are the first tribe in the United Nations for them to be able to put that on there.
So real quickly, I'd like to ask, when is NARF starting to help here?
They haven't started to help.
Yeah, and why is that?
They, like I say, they took 6 months to respond to this letter that has been talked about.
But what I'm-
6 or 7 months,
Yeah.
and they haven't. They put together a plan and said, this is kind of how we would go about it. We will send you and none of that work takes place until later this summer and into the fall and over the winter. And I guess their next step was to present us with a proposed letter of engagement before they actually begin the actual work.
So the
And
point
so
there is
they
that
haven't really
there's
commenced
no-
work. They've done some internal planning just to let us know kind of how they would proceed, and so.
The point would be that there's no decisions that have been made on that.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, the decision point would be,
There's timeline.
the
got
decision,
hours.
And that's planning, right?
the decision point would
That
be,
means
How many
they've-
things happen?
That means somebody's been doing some hard work.
Well, sure.
They
Some
put
lawyers
to-
been working hard on that.
they
I
put
hope
together,
so.
Well,
and
I
it took
know.
them a long time to do it too, and so, but there's been no decision until this, they send down a proposed letter of engagement that would, since it is retaining an outside attorney, it would have to come to this body.
Sure.
And so, before we would authorize them to do anything, and so,
And
that
that's-
hasn't happened yet, and that's, I thought I would have that by now, and if I did, I would be presenting it, but I'm still waiting on it.
I think it's a little misleading to act like this hasn't hardly been worked on. I'd
Well,
just
no,
like to
but
say
it
that.
doesn't matter. It should be, I mean, people should work on it, but that doesn't mean a decision's been made or any forward motion has happened with it. I would
They're
hope
already
that
meeting
people
with
would-
the Colorado legislature and the Colorado Commission. Isn't that work?
I
don't
I
have-
didn't get that from
I don't
there,
get that from that. I wouldn't try to mislead you, Carol. I'm shooting straight with you, as I always have. And I don't know what else to say, Sam.
I have a comment. Yes, thank you. This has really created a lot of conflict at this table, at these seats, because of the buy-in and belief of an implementation plan that, for myself, I don't find unnecessary. We're the only tribe in the nation that has signed up for this. No other tribe has done it. I also take exception that we were not even advised that this letter was sent out. And that's because we have had a lack of reporting coming out of these committees. I asked, I think in February, and it's documented in meeting minutes, that I would like to know what's happening with intergovernmental affairs and the document committee. What's going on? Those are two very, very powerful, the most powerful committees within this nation, owned by these two seats right here. And we're not getting the reporting. And you can smile and laugh, Donna, but you haven't sat and said, hey, we've got this going on, we've got some planning that we sent out to NARF. What? I mean, I can't read your lips. What are you saying?
I said I've been reporting. I report out in my quarterly
You're
minutes.
quarterly, Donna, but this is grabbing some traction, and it's important traction. I'm not trying to be any kind of way. I'm just stating, as a business person, as a council member, it would be nice to know. We wouldn't even be sitting here right now trying to have this hash out if we'd have known. Oh, you know what? We had President Echohawk send a letter over to NARF and ask them just to help us out, with some kind of planning, how we can implement it, how we can do this. But to have this handed to me this evening, I've never read it. I'm like, well, why haven't I seen this thing, right? Go ahead.
Are we going to see this from all of our committees? You know, I know we've been called fake committees, and so,
Called
but
what?
I feel
Fake?
fake.
Oh,
I heard that we have been called fake committees.
I've not heard that, but anywho's, to me, that is a very big, important, dynamic responsibility, is to keep us council members informed. I want to know what's going on. I want to know, oh, I didn't know that President Echohawk did this, and he did talk about it in April 4th, that he was doing some research, but he didn't say, hey, I sent a letter in October over to NARF and I haven't heard back from him yet. I mean, that would have been kind of nice to know. And I'm just being very plain and just trying to understand it.
Okay, any further discussion, folks?
I have one final comment. It's a big deal. It's a big deal when you are the only tribe in the United States of America to do this and to change our legal arm and take our laws and insert it and get it codified. That is a big deal. There's 573 tribes, I think, in the United States federally recognized that would not do this. It's a big deal. It's not just a little discussion here. We're being used to go do something that is just unrealistic. We're not going to get this implemented by the United States Senate. It takes 66 senators to do what we changed our government for. 66 senators unanimously. It's a big deal, and to minimize it and talk like it's nothing is just wrong for our people. That's
Carol,
all
I
gotta say.
know that you have been opposed to this from the beginning. I know that you were also outvoted, but I would just point out that, as I mentioned earlier, the Act, Section 6, calls on the President and these states to implement the UN's declaration into federal law and policy. And it also, and this other section asks the President to develop a national plan to implement that declaration in consultation with, tribes, etc. And that statute tracks exactly on what the National Congress of American Indian Resolution has requested, as well as the joint resolution of the Cherokee Nation, the Creek Nation, Seminole Nation, the Choctaw Nation. And
They haven't done what we did.
They've made those exact same requests. And so we're not alone in seeking that relief.
No, we are alone.
And-
We did not. They have never changed their entire government. That is a misleading statement that was said over and over, that the Cherokees and the Creeks did it. They did it for individual topics like domestic violence, language, and so on. We have been the first tribe, or they wouldn't be taking us into the Colorado legislature or to the governor's office. The thing is, I know very well that we're outvoted. Very true. But I wanted our Pawnee people to know the truth and for it to be transparent. And it was not transparent, is my point. So I fully accept democracy and know very well that we're outvoted, as you remind me continually.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so are we ready to move on? This was the
Yes.
last comment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other open forum? Okay. With that, I guess we'll move on.
got one.
Oh, is there another hand up? Okay. Bootsy, welcome.
So,
Floor is
Stella
yours.
Moore. So I came over to the forum because I am a tribal member. You all know that, right? And I'm really everything that you're talking about right there is really deep. Okay, it's almost over my, it is over my head. And I'm just one tribal member that don't know one thing about what's happening. Just one. I know that there's a lot more out there that don't understand this. Because I don't. You're talking way over my head. And we, as tribal members, elect you for us, for the best interest of us. And from what I read in the paper, I did not understand. So that's why I came over here tonight, to understand that. And I still want, if I can, get that question answered about Miss Black Owl. I wasn't here for that. You were asking Councilman Hare. So if that could be answered for me, I'd appreciate that, because I don't know what Miss Black Owl was asking. So can you let me know what she asked, and then can we get it answered?
Yes, thank you. When she was here a few weeks back, she asked the council during the open forum, could we post our meeting minutes from our committees? And so, that question was addressed, and one specific committee that she was interested in was the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, and so that's where I brought that comment up on that. So she was just basically asking for the committee minutes because, obviously she lives out of town. She likes to keep up with what's going on and everything else within our government. So that was the question she asked, was for the meeting minutes. Yeah.
So just to clarify, maybe, I don't know, about this letter in October. I mean, as a tribal member, I didn't even know anything about that. So, I mean, I don't understand. It's just too deep for me, okay? So, I know you all supported it. You voted yes, but I don't really think I got the answer. I don't really say why. Why did you say yes to that? And against the no's. I mean, why did it win, I guess? Why did they, always win? And then for you to, I guess I just want to answer, why? Mr. Garter P., why would you say yes to that? Why would you say yes for our tribal people to go through this?
I voted yes because I agree with those 46 articles that are in that UNDRIP for our P and DRIP, but we're not implementing it here because they deal with human rights first when they're looking at laws. We voted to use it as a guideline. So to me it's a policy. It's just a policy that we voted on for here because we're not violating human rights here. But that's what I mean. So yeah, I would like to endorse that with our national government and also the state governments that were listed, those four, because yes, there are human rights violations. That's our whole history in our United States.
Yeah.
It's voted as a policy here at Pawnee Nation.
It's not a policy, it is our law. We passed it as a statute, correct, President Echohawk?
If you look at Article
a statute.
It says it's endorsement, it's not implementation.
It's a statute. It's implemented.
I stand by my vote. I mean, I feel good about it. I mean, we're not changing anything here at the Pawnee Nation. And I don't see it as a detriment to our government or our people. And if I did, I would never vote for that.
This statutory initiative, there's an accompanying policy that goes with it that says the Pawnee Nation will, as a policy matter, consult the UN Declaration to make sure we don't violate any human rights of our members. And then we acted a statute that calls on the president to implement this UN Declaration in these 4 states. The reason being, and this was the subject of a forum, voluminous information, rigorous debate over an 8 or 9 month period. And there's still some, as I mentioned earlier, there's still some controversy about it. There's some folks that are still not happy that the council took the action that they did to enact the policy and to pass the related statute. But and it's been explained many times. But essentially, well, in these meetings and in these debates, they've been quite rigorous debates over an extended period of time. And yeah, well, that.
I'm just one.
Yeah.
And you all are elected for that, for the best interest of us. That's all I'm saying.
I think too with that as well is you think about a state lawmaker. Say someone comes to them, a lobbyist, whoever comes to them, and says, "Pawnee Nation has enacted this PNDRIPA, and it's calling on the state to enact the 46 articles within your state legislature and everything else." If I was a lawmaker in one of these states, my first question would be is, well, does Pawnee Nation, did they implement it? Is it implemented into their tribal law? And the answer would be is no. And then my reply to that would simply be is, then why would you expect us to implement it if you guys haven't implemented it yourself at Pawnee Nation? So I guess that's you got two things. You can either accept that, okay, we sent it over, lawmakers say, nope, if they're not implementing it, why should we implement it? And then it just goes off from there. Or it comes back to the Pawnee Nation and say, we need to implement this because that's what we're hearing is they're not going to move on it until it's implemented within our own tribal law itself. And so that's the way I look at it, at least.
I think the whole thrust here is to try to strengthen legal rights of our people. This UN declaration, it's a very landmark international document that the United Nations passed in the year 2007. And it lays out a comprehensive set of articles and standards for protecting the fundamental human rights of the world's indigenous peoples. Our right to practice our languages, our tribal religions, our indigenous institutions, our right to self-government, our indigenous institutions, our environment, land and water in our homelands, the well-being of our ancestors, our children, our handicap. It's just a very comprehensive set of human rights standards that the United Nations has passed. And today there's been about 150 nations around the world that have endorsed it, these standards, and are working with indigenous peoples to implement them into their domestic laws and policies to make sure, because that's the strongest right that you can have is a human right. And so Canada and the First Nations in Canada, they're all very aware of this. British Columbia passed a law endorsing it to begin implementing it into the laws of British Columbia. And then the whole nation of Canada did the same thing just about a year ago. I was making it a national law. And so there's starting to be a movement now among our tribes to try to get the United States to do the same thing. And this is the thrust of this act, is to ask the United States to basically do what Canada has recently done. And for ourselves internally here, we put in a policy to just consult these standards when we're passing laws in the future. We've never violated anyone's human rights here. And so it's just sort of a policy going forward in the future to stay that course and make sure that we can govern quite nicely without violating any of our citizens' human rights, And so that's all it is. It's an effort to strengthen the law, to strengthen our own self-governments, our own self-determination as human rights that can never be taken away by the Congress or the Supreme Court. That's the kind of rights that this is talking about here. So it's going to strengthen the rights of our nation as well as our citizens. And why this has come such a it's so hard to understand, because in part it's legal. It's a lot of legal. It's hard to explain. It's hard to understand, but it's at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to strengthen the rights of this Pawnee Nation to our self-government, our self-determination, and the rights of our members as well. So,
President Echohawk,
that's
I
about
would
to
like to say something on that.
Here we go. Okay,
We have all these rights. My family, I come from a family of veterans. Our veterans have fought and died in wars. We have the right to speak our language. We have the Indian Child Welfare Act. We have the Education Act. We have all these rights. Is that why we made our government the only tribe in the United States to do this, when we already have these rights? I think that's misleading, and I would like to say a comment about it is very difficult to understand because it's lawyers. It was all lawyers that did this. Lawyers were on the governing documents committee. We have lawyers. They speak in a different language so far above the average person, and a lot of times they wordsmith. They change one word. But that is why we're elected as a council, is to understand those things. And I will say, I don't feel that I am wrong in understanding this. I understand what those lawyers did, and I don't agree. We're outvoted, that's okay, but at least you, the Pawnee people, are able to discuss it with us. And it is complicated, and I just have not agreed on all these forms that we said it was all approved of by our people. Those forums were held during COVID, and I think the most that were of our people were 8 people. How can you say that the Pawnee people have bought into that when they weren't even there? They weren't even there. It was a group of lawyers. Every time it was a group of lawyers, always lawyers. And so I just have disagreed with it. I've just disagreed that our people have been, to me, misled through wordsmithing, and I do think that it was already a project. I read it in the book that they said they had been working there that long. So again, I'm going to disagree. We disagree. We always disagree.
Respectfully disagree, I should say.
Yeah, respectfully disagree, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, and if I could talk with you further, I'm happy to do so on it. Okay, folks, are we ready to move on at this point?
Why is everything so difficult to put out in the front for the people?
We don't make statutes that way. This body is the elected lawmaking body for the Pawnee Nation.
I'm talking about the Pawnee people.
Yeah. Well,
I did request, I requested that it go to a vote.
if we did,
No, it did not happen because it was decided that this body would decide on that. It was not allowed to go to a vote of the people by a vote of this body, 4-3.
This seems like a very bad game to be playing. The UN of all organizations? Come on.
there's something going on. What is it?
What do you hope to achieve?
As I mentioned, stronger rights for our nation and stronger rights for our people. This council, we've done a lot of historic things here on the council. And we're not afraid to be the first or to take a historic step. We do that monthly on stuff. And this is just part of that overall effort, you know. And it's been controversial, Gary, I tell you, as you know. And there's still some...
vote, and if anything happens to the tribe as it is, then everybody can look at themselves and say, well, I voted.
I think this council should consider a tribal vote. But of course, it would be 4-3, so.
Anyway,
Thank you for
out
that.
of all these tribes in the state, why is this being pushed upon us like we're guinea pigs or something? You're experimenting with us.
I think our Pawnee people are, we always fight our own fights. We always have, you know, our warrior tradition. And I think as our late president, Marshall Gover, said, you know, that the Pawnees are the best nation on the planet. And so I don't, to me, you know, I'm not afraid of doing something that is a first-time effort. As long as I believe in my heart and we have a basis for strengthening our government, then I'm all for it. That's been a hallmark of my administration. We've done a lot of things here. And this is just one. It's drawn probably the most controversy, but the purpose is to strengthen the legal rights, you know. And has been mentioned, it's difficult to explain. It's hard for people to understand, and but I think at the end of the day, may not be overnight, you know, because the Supreme Court can take away any of our rights, and they do so every year. So can Congress. If they want to change a statute to terminate the tribes, they can do that. But if we have a human right to self-government and self-determination, no nation can take away a human right without being branded an outlaw nation, you know. So some rights are larger than a nation, and these kinds of human rights are among them, and that would put our people on the strongest possible legal rights that would be very hard for Congress or the Supreme Court to take away. And so it's just an effort to strengthen the well-being and the legal rights of our people.
I would like to say one final thing to that. The United Nations Declaration is a treaty. It's a treaty.
I was going to ask.
You know, and here we are talking about, you know, we
treaty.
got to keep these rights and everything. And here, no other tribe in the United States will take this treaty and do what we did with it. And then we're going to sit here and talk about, you know, we got to stay safe and not make the Supreme Court do that. Well, why did all these tribes not do it? For that very reason. They're not going to take a treaty like we did and incorporate it into our laws. I mean, I could just...
It's very risky.
It just could go on and on. Let me tell you, it could go on and on and on, but I thought the Pawnee people should have had a vote on it. When you're taking an international treaty and making it your laws, you should have asked the Pawnees. That's my final word. The Pawnees should have got to vote for it.
I agree.
Just to be sure we're accurate here, it's not a treaty, it's an international declaration, and there's a difference on that. But
well, I disagree.
Okay. Respectfully, okay. Good enough. Well, I think at this point, I think we're ready to move on. So thank you for that, Gary. This brings us to setting the next meeting date, folks. On my calendar, it says May 16. And folks, as you know, this will be my last meeting as a member of this body, and I wanted to do two things. I've already spoken with Pat Leading Fox, our principal chief, and I'd like to have our May 16 a joint meeting between the Business Council and the Nashero Council. As I came into office, that was the first meeting that I held, was a joint meeting, and there we were striving for unity, and I wanted all of the chiefs to be here on a joint meeting. Our Constitution envisions joint meetings between the Business Council and the Chiefs Council. So I want to make that a joint meeting at that time. I also, George, would like to be on the agenda. I want to have a few minutes to do some closing goodbye remarks, I guess, to this body and our Pawnee people as I leave office. And so I think that the date itself is set May 16, as I understand it. And
President,
yes, sir.
for that joint meeting, I don't know if it's too soon, or could there be enrollment of some sort of, I always just kind of feel bad for our Nasharo chiefs just to sit there while we conduct our business here. I'd like for it to actually mean something, to have some kind of dialogue, of some sort,
Yeah.
where we could see both bodies actually working together on something
Okay.
to that. I mean, if there's not enough time, I get that and everything else. I just always kind of, they're just sitting there and not.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
No, we'll work out with George and our principal chief, and we'll lay out an agenda where they can participate. But I just wanted them there, because I really respect them, and they've really helped our efforts, to have reunify our people and our tribal government here, and so I think it would be fitting and appropriate to do that. So we'll work on an agenda with them, George, and along with Pat, I guess. So thank you for that. And I think with that, and I suppose we'll have it at our regular time, 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock? Okay.
Okay.
5 o'clock then. And other than that, I think this brings the clock on the wall, says it's time for adjournment. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Jordan Canugo,
Yes.
George Gard, PS, Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The clock on the wall says we are dismissed. So have a great evening, folks. Safe drive home. 8 p.m.